I was teaching at that point in time at Kinnaird. और Kinnaird में मैं English language और literature के these were my subjects. और Sabeen was enrolled in naturally as a student there. और मेरी क्लास में थी. क्लास में तो बहुत से लोग होते थे और Kinnaird उस ज़माने में I'm sure आज भी होगा, but at that point in time Kinnaird was the best institute and you had from all over Pakistan the cream there. And I'm not talking as a biased thing, but we merit-wise also, and there were a lot of vibrant young girls who are all now in their different, women in their own right. So it was, the class numbers were large. Like we used to have more than 40 students, 50 students. English compulsory की class है और इतने बड़ी class है और then there were always these few sparks who would crop up, and that is how I came to not only know Sabeen but notice her. I would say as a teacher, the first thing you note is the intelligence of a student, and that is vis-a-vis the class discussion, vis-a-vis the written work that is submitted. And my subject is such. I am grateful I chose this subject. Literature and language, English language, both these subjects, and I think for the literature of any language or any is the human story. So the discussion in class used to always revolve around. But Sabeen का ये था कि वो बाकी भी बच्चे थे, 2-3 इसकी थी लाइक माइंडेड सी लड़कियां जिनके साथ ये हॉस्टल में थी. और हॉस्टलाइट्स जो थी वो जरा उनके लिए ना घर जाना तो काफ़ी चैलेंजिंग होता था बिकॉज शी केम फ्रॉम कराची. एक और कराची का अपना एक कल्चर, लाहौर का एक अपना कल्चर, और Lahore was, let's say, more sort of, in the thing. Or Sabeen refused to be in, or wo she always felt कि ये in होना का क्या मतलब होता है. So many a times we had these debates where she would say, what is in? And for her, being in meant being part of the herd. मतलब अब मैं गाय हूँ कि मैं बकरी हूँ कि जो हर्ड मेंटालिटी है. तो ये बड़ी अच्छी इंटरेस्टिंग डिबेट होती थी. तो कुछ लड़कियां कहती थी कि नहीं, बट हाउ कैन यू बी द ऑड वन आउट. एंड मेनी टाइम्स वी यूज्ड टू टेल आवर स्टूडेंट्स that you allow your mind. I mean, I'm guilty of that, and there were other teachers also. We warned our students that there is something called writing for the paper, for the examination, where you dumb down yourself. But that doesn't mean you dumb down yourself in your practical life. So the class discussions were always, more vibrant. So that is how, I noticed first. But what really set her apart was one particular incident, and that was the visit of Lady Diana. When Princess Diana visited Lahore, the Lahore too was like Christmas Adi. And honestly, Kinnaird was selected. I mean, you were selected to be presented before royalty, and there was royalty, and this princess was coming, and a special program was, put together. And this college was told that you would, you should be in Sunday best, and everything was being done in order to receive royalty. And honestly, I'm not exaggerating, many of my own acquaintances जो अच्छे भले लोग थे, खाते पीते खानदानी लोग जिनको हम कहते हैं, जो आपकी एलीट हैं, वो लिटरली गेट क्रैश करना चाह रहे थे कि जी लेडी डायना आ रही हैं और हमने सामने वाली लाइन में हमें खड़ा कर दे उनको रिसीव करने। भाई ना उन्होंने आपसे मिलना है ना कुछ करना है, लेकिन जो भी है वो आपने और हम भी उसी लहर में थे। हाँ, हमने भी तैयार होना है, और इसी एक्साइटमेंट में हमने कहा कि भाई अब सारे स्टूडेंट्स जो हैं, क्योंकि उनको रिसीव करेंगे, और ये हॉस्टल वाले तो घर भी नहीं जा सकते थे, और वो मैंडेटरी था कि हॉस्टल वाले जो है ना वो साइड पे फ्लैग्स वेव करेंगे और वो प्रिंसेस डायना को वेलकम करेंगे। एंड देन टू ऐड फ्यूल टू फायर, एज टीचर्स we asked our students to write on this grand day. Sabeen blew her top. Sabeen तो आई मेरे पास और उसने कहा, Mrs. Saeed, I am not going to be present. And how can you do this? I said, what happened? She said, but how can you receive and welcome and be so excited about it? Have you forgotten the atrocities of the empire? And I'm looking at this girl who's young, और कोई ये भी नहीं है कि हम पढ़ा रहे हैं पोस्ट कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्री या कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्री पढ़ा रहे हैं। ये तो वो जमाना है कि जहाँ एक the coursework is sort of singing praise of Winston Churchill, because you have a story which talks about, it's a snippet of a biography from Winston Churchill's life at Harrow, and we are celebrating and introduce Winston Churchill as the great leader. So it's not 2020s or the 23 where, you realize that there is a darker side to Winston Churchill. We are absolutely sort of, blind to that particular point, and we haven't introduced that to our students. So for me, this was one student who I wanted to hug. Here was a student who wasn't actually the herd. She turned around and said, I'm not going to welcome her, and I'm not going to write an essay. And if I'm going to write an essay, then you better be prepared. I'm going to write one which is going to really, really burn a lot of these things. I said, मैं घर जा रही हूँ. And in protest, और वो था कि फाइन देना पड़ेगा अगर आप छुट्टी पे गए, तो मैं फाइन दे दूँ, मगर मैंने नहीं यहाँ खड़े होके फ्लैग वेव करना। मुझे तो वो देख के याद आएगा कि इन्होंने हमारे साथ क्या जुल्म किया है, और हमारी जो है ना आज हम जहाँ हैं ये there, and then I embraced her, literally and figuratively, because for me, here was a student who was not going to follow, who wanted to lead. And when I started following her, then students graduate and they go away. And I met her twice, and those two meetings were not sort of, the thing. I lost track. Naturally, young girls, you don't want to be tied to your teacher, But she met me accidentally. We were at, this was a literary festival and at the LLF, and I was sitting, and I remember sitting on the steps of hall number 1, and she met me, she recognized me. I was surprised. मुझे तो याद थी क्योंकि यार देयर वाज अ स्टूडेंट जिसने है वो कहा था और मैंने सबको आके कहा कि भाई एक बच्चा है जो कह रहा है कि भाई और वो वाकई, क्योंकि हमारे भी बड़े कहते थे कि गोरे ने हमारे साथ ये किया, गोरे ने हमारे साथ वो किया, लेकिन वो जो एक था वो you never articulated it in that way as a resistance. This was a form of resistance, and resisting for the nation, for the mindset of a whole group of people who had forgotten history. And mind you, the sad part was that we were all academics. We were not like, the crowd. We were the academics. And even if we did feel that, oh my God, what is happening? Are we still enslaved or the thing? We were silent. I mean, Lahore was out on the road. And this college was celebrating. And we all wore our Sunday best. But this child was like the proverbial child in the emperor's new clothes who said the emperor is naked. The only difference was that that particular child had the truth, and could not deny the truth. This child calculated, hot. It was not a spontaneous response. It was a well-informed response. And at that point, I wondered कि ये इसका घर कैसा होगा, जहाँ से इसको ये एजुकेशन मिली. और मुझे नहीं मालूम था. आप मतलब आप ना आपको एज अ स्टूडेंट मालूम है आपकी टीचर की बैकग्राउंड क्या है, और ना मुझे एज अ टीचर मालूम है कि मेरा स्टूडेंट कहाँ से आ रहा है. We only see you as an individual who's interacting. For me, you could be the worst human being, but in class, if you are doing well, I do not know the traumas, the anxieties, the stresses that any individual is going until unless you come in close contact, which is not something that is done easily. And to be very honest, it's something like 52 की class में, 48 की class में, in spite of the trying to be, know my students, I can't. I can't claim and say, oh, I know my students very well. I don't know my own self very well. So how can I make such a tall claim and say I know my student? But it fascinated me, and I used to often think. फिर मुझे मालूम हुआ कि इसने उधर एक खोला है कराची में, और बहुत शौक था कि जाऊँ, क्योंकि जो इवेंट्स वगैरह होते थे वो बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग होते थे, और हम लाहौर वाले जो थे वो देखते थे कि अच्छा यहाँ बहुत डिस्कशंस हो रही हैं. एज ए टीचर इंटरेस्टेड कि भाई एक्सपोजर है, ये है, वो है. फिर मैंने जैसे कहा कि मुझे एक दफ़ा मिली एंड जब शी टॉक्ड अबाउट इट. हाँ, अब आप ये देखो ना कि आई कुड, जब मिली भी तो शी सेड मिसेस सईद आई एम डूइंग दिस, आई एम डूइंग दैट, वो जो अपना बता रही थी. एंड बट उसमें यू कुड सी कि वो शी फेल्ट देयर वाज सो मच टू डू. और वाई एक जो होता है ना, to the realization that everything is wrong. I'm in a maze. How do I put things right? I don't know. I sense that in her, and this is, I'm talking way early. It was probably one of the LLFs that I met her. She'd come to Lahore, and we sort of touch base and अच्छा चले आप पढ़ा रही हैं, आई रिमेम्बर ये वो करके जो भी एक दूसरे को. मैंने उससे कहा कि एंड शी वाज वेरी हैप्पी कि अच्छा आपको मालूम है मैं ये कर रही हूँ. और मैंने उससे कहा कि अच्छा तुम्हें याद है कि मैं याद हूँ आपको. तो वो सारा बस वो इस टाइप का था. तो वो आप करने के बाद वो उसको ना देन शी उसके बाद एक बात में मुझे ना बहुत ख्याल आया कि ये सबीन ने जब ये मिसिंग बलोच वाला हुआ, why would she do something like that? It reminded me of the Lady Diana incident. It's like she knew that the only way forward for this country is when we recognize to what extent are we responsible for the destruction that we ourselves are bringing upon ourselves. My brother, my sister, I mean, this missing person, it is the females who are out there. You read about them. And I'm insensitive to those issues. If we all take up that issue and say, no, we have had enough. We will not allow this. We can't turn around and name everybody a traitor. And then, being a student of literature myself, when I look at an individual like Sabeen, I'm reminded of all those independent voices. And again, I repeat, as a student of literature, there's a very famous poet, W.B. Yeats, from Ireland. And the Yeatsian spirit of independence. Yeats has been accused of, not blindly following nationalism. When you are blindly nationalistic, which we, our tragedy is, with, again, being a mother, being a woman, I see myself and my land and see people like Mehnaz and Sabeen as citizens of this land who unfortunately are so few. Who is responsible for the destruction of a child? A mother who is blind to the faults of her child. And as a result of the blindness of the mother, the child turns out into a demon and consumes the mother and the family. एक आपका बच्चा अगर आप उसको नहीं टोकेंगे, नहीं रोकेंगे, वो आपकी फैमिली को डिस्ट्रॉय कर देगा. आज अगर हम इस जगह पहुंचे हैं तो इसलिए है क्योंकि हम हर एक को या तो काफिर कह देते हैं, हम वो मायने नहीं रही. We become so blind to, माँ जो होती है वो सबसे पहले उसका काम होता है नोटिस करना कि ये मेरे बच्चे में कमजोरी है, ये गलती है और इसको मैं ठीक कर लूं या इसको एहसास दिला दूं कि बेटा ये this is going to bring about your destruction. You better be careful. Sabeen wanted to be that citizen who wanted the citizens of this land. And when I look at Mehnaz, I understand that it came from, where was it coming from? I feel that Sabeen is alive through Mehnaz because both have fused into one. The mother has embraced the daughter, and as a result, both the mother and the daughter are now one living spirit. And it is a very potent spirit that gives you hope, that refuses to give up the fight. I know of mothers who have suffered at the hands of such oppression and have left the land and have taken the easy path, lived. I don't resent them, I understand them. They hate the land, they hold the land responsible. But Mehnaz refuses to. And that for me is such a. I wish we had more patriots like this. And it is not just a piece of land that she loves, that Sabeen loved. It is, she embraced humanity. उसके लिए ये नहीं था कि लेडी डायना ने मेरे दादा के साथ ये किया था और मेरे नाना के साथ ये किया था. उसने कहा इस जमीन के साथ क्या किया था. मिसेस सईद आप ये कैसे कह सकती हैं कि जी आप मुझे कहें कि जी आप उधर फ्लैग लेके तो लहराएं और उनको बुलाएं और उनको सलाम करूं, जब इस वो जो जुल्म है. अब भाई आपके दादा के साथ किया, आपके नाना के साथ किया, आपकी जमीन खा गए वो लोग गोरे, आपको नवाब का टाइटल ले लिया उन्होंने. नहीं, मेरी जमीन के साथ उन्होंने ये जुल्म किया, मेरे लोगों पे ये जुल्म किया. तो इससे बड़ा पेट्रियट क्या होगा? इससे बड़ा मुसलमान कौन होगा कि जो मजलूम की आवाज उठाएगा, जिसके लिए बड़े से बड़ा जो है वो डर के भाग गया. But this young girl who said, okay, ठीक है, देखा जाएगा. She was way ahead of her times. Lahore at that particular point was very sort of for girls especially, it was a very limited field. Kinnaird had some of the best students, and many of our female leaders have emerged from Kinnaird. But 90% of the girls were your regular girls who had only one thing in mind, and that was, they don't either marriage or a career that was money minded, in the sense corporate world, professional also. There wasn't that spirit to do. How many people would go into humanity services? How many people would even think of, if we look at the Kinnaird alumni, how many have put up a project like T2F, the second floor? I don't think we can count them even. So, yes, when we talk about success, there are many women and those around her, her colleagues, her friends. They are all success stories, but it's a very worldly success story. This desire to create a space that is much needed. Pakistan is starved for intellectual space. आपके पास कहाँ है? On a lighter note, I'll say this, that हम तो चॉम्स्की को बुलाते हैं, नोम चॉम्स्की को हम बुला के हम उनका लेक्चर अवारी में करते हैं. He's the voice of the people. He talks about the problems of the people. And I remember a very dear friend who, Chomsky had come to Lahore, and Chomsky had been invited to his We was going to speak at the Awari. And this friend of mine, he turned around and said, कि यार ये तो ऐसे लग रहा है जैसे चॉम्स्की का वलीमा है. I mean, this is what we have become. And Sabeen, what she did was, by that space that she created, I haven't been there, but I knew what everybody talks about was open to all. It wasn't a Navari. So, this is how different she was from her peers. वो brand conscious नहीं थी. मुझे जो उस चीज की याद आती है कि भाई उस बच्ची ने उस जमाने में, अब एथनिक फैशन हो गया, उस जमाने में उसने अपनी वो खड्डी का कपड़े पहने होते थे एथनिक, और बड़े सिंपल, कोई मेकअप नहीं, कुछ नहीं, कोई मेकअप नहीं, कुछ नहीं, लड़कियां तैयार हो रही हैं, लड़कियां, वो एज भी है कि भाई you want to sort of do the thing, and not that she sort of made fun of those who were the thing. She was comfortable in her own self. She was confident in her own self. She never felt KG. There was this confidence that oozed, that sort of attracted you towards her. Okay, what is it that this girl whose face is freshly washed, whose hair is short, a bob, and who seems to be who's most comfortable, and is most comfortable in her skin, and is so confident at an age where most are awkward. So that is what set her apart from her peers. Her peers, I have great respect. But वो जो एक होता है ना कि ओ भाई तुम वो करो, वो अब खत्म हो गई है. अब हम जब छोटे होते थे, हमारी जनरेशन में थोड़ा सा जरूर होता था कि अच्छा, हम बड़े फैसिनेट होते थे लेफ्ट से, कि लेफ्ट की एक आजादी होती है. चे वाज आवर हीरो, क्या देखो दुनिया बदल दी, ये करती वो करती. मगर हमारे जमाने में इट वाज नेवर अज्यूम्ड कि हाँ तुम लेफ्ट हो इसका मतलब तुम काफिर हो. एवरीबॉडी थॉट कि ठीक है. अब ये है कि people are afraid to say that they are left. नहीं भाई हम लेफ्ट, नहीं, ये बात लेफ्ट की बात ही ना करो. What is religion? Religion, no, where does God encourage injustice? Not a single point. The more you read the Quran, the more you realize that God is left. Because God says कि भाई हम इतनी हमने डिविजन्स कर दी हैं कि आपने सर ढका, ऑटोमेटिक अज्यूम करेंगे कि ये मौलाना है. I lived in Egypt for some time, and I really feel that I wish we also had this space. Egypt में एक बड़े अच्छा उनकी प्रैक्टिस थी. आप किसी भी लेक्चर सुनने चले जाओ, जो भी स्पीकर था, और ये नहीं कि भाई सिर्फ कोई ग्रैंड हो या at a very costly place or at a very sort of a specific place. This could be the corner public space of your street or of your locality or of the society that you lived in. They used to have these public speakers coming in, and I, because I wasn't doing anything, I was accompanying my husband, I would listen. Enter होते ही आपको पूछते थे which language. स्पीकर को वो नहीं रोकते थे कि आपने अंग्रेजी में बोलना है या फ्रेंच में बोलना है. वो कहते थे स्पीकर जो है वो अरबी में बोले, फारसी में बोले, अंग्रेजी में बोले, जिस मर्जी में बोले. आपने किस में सुनना है. वहाँ ट्रांसलेशन सर्विसेज होती थी, वो आपको वो देते थे, आप अपने कान में लगा के आपने जिस लैंग्वेज को समझना है उस लैंग्वेज में. The speaker had the freedom to express whatever he wanted to say or she wanted to say without any hindrance of expression or filtering of thought because of language barriers. And the listener listened to knowledge. और मैं ये जरूर कहूँगी कि she was an avid reader. And she read everything and always wanted to read not the usual, but the texts, those writers who sort of challenged the status quo. She was never, your romantic thing. She was not that starry-eyed thing. And yet she was a romantic at heart. Always very independent, a good student, did her work diligently. She was not a nerd. She was bright and quick to grasp the concept. And the unfortunate thing was that the program, the syllabus, was not challenging enough for her. So it was like a piece of cake for her. And in a way it was unfortunate that it didn't challenge her much and students like her. But fortunate in the sense that it gave them a lot of opportunity to creatively express themselves. So as a teacher, you found a lot of space to do something beyond the text, to sort of, discuss and have a more open discussion. So you didn't need to be very, and my subject was close to her heart. I was listening to, I think that's identity, and its recognition comes from the freedom that you are given or allowed to think. We unfortunately don't listen to our children. We think children don't know. With the result, we are constantly telling them and not listening to them. I've learned so much from my students. Even today, I learn a lot from them. Because they are coming from a world which is different from my world. Their experience is different to my experience. And when I listen to them, I learn. Okay, this is a better way to do it. And at the end of the day, what is my goal? That is learning. Why is our youth not, why don't we have so many Sabeens? Because we don't have Mehnaz, mothers like Mehnaz who should go around, educating mothers. I mean, I was listening to her, the podcast that she had, there was a podcast that she did with one of these young men. I follow his podcast as well. I admire young people because it is my generation that has brought about this world. In Lahore, there is this grief directory. There's this young doctor. I'm much impressed by them also. There's Dr. Narmeen. Remember this young doctor who was, and his son, जो HSM में पढ़ता था, so on the basis of their ethnicity, their religious affiliation, कि जी वो शिया हैं, उनको FC कॉलेज के बाहर मार दिया था. He was a very famous ophthalmologist. बेटा और बाप को, तो उसकी his widow and her friend both doctors. उन्होंने फिर एक फोरम क्रिएट किया, ग्रीफ डायरेक्टरी इन लाहौर, and they're doing wonderful work, being there for people who are grieving and have no one to turn to. You know, we forget because they're an item, a news item, and then move on because the next day another news item, and then the third day another, and then you forget. But those who are grieving are lost. So many of my students have interned there as well, and that's also, here is Mehnaz who's providing a forum. Ki come, you can be another, sort of voice. So for me, Sabeen then, now has extended into her mother. Now for me, I see the adult Sabeen in the mother. For me, it's more like a reversal. It's like Mehnaz ने जवान हो गई है और सबीन जो है वो और उम्र में बड़ी हो गई है और दोनों फ्यूज हो गए हैं एक जगह, क्योंकि सबीन बोलती है और मेहनाज के थ्रू और मेहनाज बोलती है सबीन के थ्रू. So for me, that is something. I mean, she embodied that spirit. And then, when it was very shocking because this happened right after that Kawal was killed. और ये बच्ची तो किसी को कुछ कह भी नहीं रही थी. मतलब एक स्पेस है. ये तो ऐसे ही है कि जैसे मैं घर में किसी को इंटेलेक्चुअल आउटलेट्स के लिए, एक आपकी अंदर की क्रिएटिविटी के लिए एक स्पेस दी. एंड द सैडेस्ट पार्ट इज कि हमारी जो मनी क्लास है, अब पाकिस्तान में ये छोटे छोटे बॉल्स बनने शुरू हो गए, 4-5. It's isolation. We're all isolated. We're all into these small things, 4 group का है, like-minded हो गए हैं. We don't think in terms of community. We don't think in terms of belonging. This is what set Sabeen apart. She thought in terms of the community, and she thought in terms of humanity. I mean, her space was for the community. मैं उनको देखती हूँ, मेहनाज को, and I don't know her. मैं आपको एक बात बताऊँ, मैं मेहनाज को सिर्फ एक दफा मिली हूँ. हाँ, वो लम्ज़ाई नहीं थी और मुझे सिर्फ था कि मैंने अफसोस नहीं किया सबीन का, और मुझे ये भी नहीं मालूम था कि मेरा चॉइस ऑफ वोकैबुलरी भी ठीक है कि नहीं, कि मैं क्या ये कहूँ कि मैंने अफसोस करना है आपसे, क्योंकि वो जो एक फिजिकल लॉस तो एक है, बट हियर इज जिसे हम वाकई, the word has been so misused that you are now language has been abused in our culture and in our society in recent times so horribly that now you have to be very careful as to your choice of words because they have become meaningless. I mean, Sabeen has to be celebrated because here is somebody who believed, lived, and even left on this thing. So I wanted to be there. Lums में था. My daughter teaches at Lums. उसने मुझे कहा माँ आपकी स्टूडेंट की ना वो उन्होंने कर रहे हैं मेमोरी तो आपने आना है तो मैंने उससे कहा हाँ मैंने उनसे ज़रूर मिलना है क्योंकि मैं सिर्फ आई जस्ट वांट टू sort of tell her that I need to meet her. I don't know why I wanted to. I just sat in the crowd and but somehow the other there's such a magnetism in her na Mehnaz कि I went up to her and I told her, I said, कि इस तरह तो